This lesson is about absolute phrases. And as I often do, I'm going to have you work right out of the gate. Let's take a look at a couple of sentences, okay? I want you to combine these two sentences in any way you see fit, okay? So go ahead and pause this video and combine the two sentences. Okay, as with other sentence combining activities, you could have done this in many different ways. You could have, for example, put an and then had an independent clause like his clothes were soaked from the rainstorm outside. That's an easy way to do it. Just throw a coordinating conjunction in there and throw the two together. But take a look at this option. His clothes soaked from the rainstorm outside. This is called an absolute phrase. We call it a phrase, but it kind of looks like a clause because it does have the word soaked, which seems like a verb, right? But if we isolate it, we're going to notice a couple of things that tell us that this is a phrase. His clothes is a noun phrase. The rest of this is a participial phrase. We're missing kind of the main verb of the sentence, if it was a complete sentence, right? What verb is missing to make this phrase into a complete sentence? What do you think? The word were, the be form. And in fact, that's how you detect an absolute phrase. An absolute phrase is missing a be form. And in addition, it's using a participial or an ing-like verb to complete the phrase. So absolute phrases, as with other kinds of phrases, gives you variety in your sentences. Sure. But it also adds immediacy, almost an urgency to the sentence. Absolute phrases tend to work better in more creative, immediate description of action, but look for opportunities to use them for rhetorical effect in your writing. So, how do you make absolute phrases? Well, there are two different ways. The first one is that you just remove the be verb from a sentence. So let's take a look at this one again. In this one, all you have to do to create an absolute phrase is to remove the word and put a comma where the period is. And you see now we have an absolute phrase as the second part of the sentence. The second way to make an absolute phrase is to change the main verb of a sentence to an ing type verb. So here's a new one we haven't seen yet. In the second half, the game got even worse for the home team. The visiting crew crashed the boards for every rebound and dropped three-point shots from every spot around the perimeter. How do you make the second sentence an absolute phrase and combine it with the first? You change the main verb crashed, and there's also the verb dropped, as you see there, into ing verbs. So it looks like this. The visiting crew crashing the boards for every rebound and dropping three-point shots from every spot around the perimeter. Okay, I think you're getting the hang of what an absolute phrase is. Let's look at three more examples, and I want you to now identify where the absolute phrases are for each of these sentences, okay? Let's start with this one. Where is the absolute phrase? And here's your hint. Look for where you could put a be verb like were. Yeah, you got it. It's at the front of the sentence here. Her objective was achieved. Okay, sentence number 2. Take a look at this one. Where is the absolute phrase here? Did you pick this part of the sentence? Okay, yeah. This is an absolute phrase. If we were to isolate it, put a were, all of them were faint with hunger and ravaged by scurvy. Okay, final sentence. This one comes from Tobias Wolff. Where's the absolute phrase here? Aha! Maybe you discovered the trick. There are two absolute phrases actually in this segment. Most were quiet, some were yelling and working their risers to keep from banging into each other. He's talking about parachuting when he was in the Army during the Vietnam War. And if we look at all three of these sentences, we notice something. We notice something that gives us a hint to the rhetorical options you have using absolute phrases. The first one, the absolute phrase, functions as a sentence opener. The second one functions as a subject-verb split. We're splitting Scott, Wilson, and Bowers from pitched their tent, right? And then the last one, the air was full of men. You see here, it's the absolute phrase is a sentence closer. So you have options, as with other phrases and modifiers, for using these. And in addition, punctuation. The middle example is ripe for isolating the absolute phrase with dashes. Okay, with a good definition and some examples in our heads, we're ready to exercise using absolute phrases and creating absolute phrases. Let's start here. What I want you to do for this example and in this exercise is to combine these two sentences to make one sentence. But I want you to do it 3 times. I want you to make 1.2 the absolute phrase by eliminating the were and adding it to 1.1 as a sentence opener, as a subject-verb splitter, and as a sentence closer. Go ahead and pause this video and write the 3 sentences using 1.2 as an absolute phrase in 3 different parts. In this exercise, I want you to combine all 5 of these sentences into one sentence, making 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5 absolute phrases in a series separated by commas, connected to 1.1. Did that make sense? Give it a try anyway. I want you to combine all 5 of these into one complete sentence by building absolute phrases off of 1.1. Pause the video, give it a shot. For this last exercise, I want you to build absolute phrases onto the 3 sentences you see on the screen. You can build them anywhere you want. You can have them say anything you want. But try to practice putting the absolute phrases in the 3 different places we talked about, using the dash on occasion as you're constructing the sentences, okay? So take these 3 sentences, don't combine them, but for each sentence, put absolute phrases onto it, at least one on each of the sentences.